Every city ever built, every ship that crossed an ocean, every machine, every computer, every spacecraft, all of them trace their origins back to one extraordinary moment in prehistory. Long before writing, before agriculture, before the first civilizations, our ancestors made a decision that changed the destiny of life on Earth. They reached into one of nature's most destructive forces and learned to control it: fire. To every other animal, fire is a signal to flee. It destroys forests, consumes entire landscapes, and leaves only ash behind. But somewhere in the distant past, a small group of early humans saw something different. Instead of running away, they stayed. That single choice transformed a physically fragile ape into the most adaptable species the planet has ever known. Fire gave our ancestors warmth in frozen climates, protection from predators, and access to foods their bodies had never been able to fully exploit. It reshaped the way humans ate, slept, traveled, and eventually fought. Yet one question has fascinated archaeologists for generations. When did humans truly master fire? The answer is far more complicated and far more fascinating than most people realize. Because humanity didn't discover fire in a single moment. It happened over hundreds of thousands of years, through countless small breakthroughs, failed attempts, and generations of observation. This is the story of how our ancestors stopped fearing the flame and began using it to reshape the world. Nearly 2 million years ago, the world was changing. Not suddenly, but relentlessly. The climate grew colder. Rainfall became less predictable. Across eastern Africa, dense forests that had sheltered our ancestors for millions of years slowly gave way to vast stretches of open savanna. It was a beautiful landscape. It was also one of the most dangerous places on Earth. Unlike the forests, the open grasslands offered few places to hide. Predators could spot their prey from hundreds of meters away. Every journey for food became a gamble between survival and death. And among the countless animals struggling to adapt was a new kind of human ancestor, Homo erectus. Appearing around 1.9 million years ago, Homo erectus looked remarkably different from earlier hominins. Their legs were longer, their bodies were built for endurance. They could walk and even run across enormous distances in search of food and water. But they were far from invincible. They had no claws, no fangs, no thick fur to survive cold nights. And compared with the predators that shared their world, they were physically outmatched. When darkness fell across the savanna, lions, giant hyenas, and saber-toothed cats became the rulers of the landscape. For early humans, nightfall often meant finding shelter and hoping to survive until sunrise. Finding enough food was just as difficult. Fruit was becoming less abundant as forests disappeared. To survive, Homo erectus expanded its diet, relying more heavily on roots, tubers, seeds, insects, marrow, and scavenged meat. But there was a problem. Most of these foods were incredibly difficult to eat raw. Fibrous roots demanded powerful jaws. Raw meat took hours to chew. And extracting enough calories required an enormous digestive system that consumed a great deal of energy. Our ancestors faced a biological dilemma. To support a larger brain, they needed more energy. But obtaining that energy with a raw diet was slow, inefficient, and costly. For hundreds of thousands of years, evolution seemed trapped. Then nature itself offered an unexpected opportunity. Not through a new tool, not through a new species, but through one of the most destructive forces the African savanna had ever known: fire. Humanity's relationship with fire wasn't born in a single moment. There was no lone inventor, no dramatic discovery that instantly changed the course of history. Instead, it unfolded over hundreds of thousands of years. Each generation learned a little more than the one before it, transforming fire from an unstoppable force of nature into humanity's greatest ally. That journey can be understood in 3 remarkable stages. Phase 1. Following the fire. Long before humans could control fire, nature controlled it. Lightning strikes, volcanic eruptions, and prolonged droughts regularly ignited wildfires across Africa. These fires were terrifying, destroying everything in their path. But once the flames died down, the landscape looked very different. Where other animals saw devastation, early humans began to notice opportunity. Burned grass made it easier to spot food. Small animals that couldn't escape the flames became easy meals. Hidden tubers were exposed by the fire, and many had become softer than before. Even large predators often avoided freshly burned ground until the smoke had cleared. Our ancestors may have discovered something unexpected. Fire didn't only destroy, sometimes it provided. Imagine experiencing cooked food for the very first time. A tough root that once required endless chewing suddenly became soft. Meat that had been nearly impossible to tear apart became tender. Whether this happened by accident or careful observation, no one can say. But these encounters may have planted an extraordinary idea. Perhaps fire wasn't simply something to escape. Perhaps it could be useful. Phase 2. Keeping the flame alive. At some point, observing fire was no longer enough. Someone took a risk. Instead of leaving the flames behind, they carried them home. No one knows exactly when this happened. Archaeologists continue to debate the timeline, with some evidence suggesting controlled fire more than 1 million years ago, while others argue habitual use became common much later. But whenever it happened, the challenge was enormous. Fire is not easily controlled. A burning branch grows cold. Rain extinguishes it. Strong winds scatter it. Keeping a fire alive required constant attention. Dry wood had to be collected before it was needed. The flames had to be protected throughout the night. If the fire died, the group might wait weeks or even months for another natural wildfire. For the first time, fire became something worth protecting. And in protecting the fire, people protected each other. The campfire changed more than survival. It changed society. Instead of scattering at sunset, families gathered together. The flames provided warmth on cold nights. Predators kept their distance. Conversations lasted longer. Knowledge could be shared after dark. Some anthropologists even suggest these evenings around the fire helped strengthen language, teaching, and social bonds, although exactly how much remains an active area of research. Whether or not fire created language, it almost certainly created a new kind of community. Phase 3. Making fire. Now imagine the worst possible outcome. The fire is gone. There is no lightning, no nearby wildfire, no burning tree on the horizon. Everything your group depends on has vanished. For countless generations, this was a genuine disaster. Then came humanity's greatest breakthrough: creating fire from nothing. Unlike preserved hearths, fire-making tools rarely survive in the archaeological record. But by the time of Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens, Our ancestors had clearly mastered several techniques. Some relied on friction, spinning wood against wood until glowing embers appeared. Others struck mineral-rich stones together to produce sparks. The methods differed. The achievement was the same. For the first time in history, humans no longer depended on nature to provide fire. They could create it whenever they needed. That single innovation fundamentally changed humanity's relationship with the natural world. Fire was no longer borrowed. It belonged to us. From that point forward, the story of human civilization would no longer be limited by what nature offered. It would be shaped by what humans learned to create. The engine of human transformation. Learning to control fire was one achievement. Understanding what it did to us was another. Fire didn't simply make life easier. It transformed the human body, rewrote our daily lives, and changed the direction of evolution itself. But perhaps its greatest gift wasn't warmth. It was energy. Cooking, nature's shortcut. Heat unfolds proteins, softens plant fibers, gelatinizes starches, and destroys many harmful microbes. In other words, fire begins the work of digestion before food even enters the body. The result is simple. The same meal provides more usable calories with far less effort. That extra energy may have changed everything. Many anthropologists, including Richard Wrangham, argue that cooking allowed our ancestors to extract enough calories to support increasingly larger brains. Other researchers agree that cooking became enormously important, but continue to debate exactly when it first became a regular part of human life. The timing remains uncertain. Its importance does not. A different kind of human. The human brain is astonishingly expensive. Although it makes up only about 2% of our body weight, it consumes roughly 20% of our resting energy. Supporting such an organ required an extraordinary source of fuel. One influential explanation is known as the expensive tissue hypothesis. The idea is surprisingly straightforward. If the digestive system spends less energy processing food, more energy becomes available for other organs, especially the brain. Greater investment in brain development, no scientist believes fire alone explains human intelligence. Brain evolution involved climate, diet, social cooperation, tool use, and many other factors. But for many researchers, cooking represents one of the most important pieces of that puzzle. Conquering the night. Lions, hyenas, leopards. When the sun disappeared, early humans had little choice but to hide. A campfire changed those rules. Large carnivores generally avoided open flames, giving human groups a safer place to rest. The fire also provided warmth during cold nights and extended the day long after sunset. For the first time, people could remain awake together after dark. They repaired tools, prepared food, watched over children, shared knowledge, perhaps even told the earliest stories. Exactly what happened around those ancient fires is impossible to know, but nearly every human culture throughout history has gathered around a fire for food, conversation, and companionship. That tradition may stretch back hundreds of thousands of years. Humanity's first technology platform. The fire itself became a tool. Green wood hardened in the heat, producing stronger spears. Certain stones fractured more predictably after careful heating, making sharper cutting tools. Smoke helped preserve meat and repel insects. Heat dried hides. Ash altered soils. One discovery led naturally to another. Without realizing it, our ancestors had begun manipulating chemistry. Fire was no longer just a source of warmth. It had become humanity's first universal technology. Every major technological revolution that followed, from pottery and metalworking to steam engines and modern industry, would depend on the same principle: learning to control heat. The Age of Fire was only the beginning. Legacy: shifting the balance of power. By mastering fire, humans gained something no other animal had ever possessed: the ability to reshape their environment, instead of simply adapting to it. For millions of years, our ancestors had lived within the limits set by nature. Climate determined where they could survive. Predators dictated when they could move. Darkness brought every day to an end. Fire changed those rules. Expanding beyond Africa. Warmth is easy to take for granted, but during the Ice Age, it meant the difference between life and death. Without fire, much of Europe and northern Asia would have been nearly impossible for early humans to inhabit. With it, frozen landscapes became survivable. Caves became homes. Cold nights became bearable. Food could be cooked, water could be boiled, predators could be kept at a safer distance. Fire became something extraordinary, a portable piece of the tropics. Wherever humans traveled, they carried a fragment of home with them. Humanity's first engineering tool. As generations passed, people discovered that fire could do far more than provide warmth. Heat changed materials. Wood hardened in the flames, producing stronger hunting spears. Certain types of stone became easier to shape after controlled heating. Adhesives used to attach stone points to wooden shafts could be produced or strengthened with heat. Each discovery expanded what humans could build. Fire had become the world's first engineering tool. It was no longer just helping people survive. It was helping them invent. The beginning of every revolution. Thousands of years passed. The campfire became the kiln. The kiln became the furnace. The furnace gave rise to bronze, then iron, then steel. Eventually, humans learned to burn coal, then oil, then harness electricity itself. Every major technological revolution depended on one simple idea: control energy. Whether smelting metal, powering steam engines, launching spacecraft, or generating electricity, human civilization still relies on the same principle our ancestors first explored beside an ancient fire: learning how to command heat. The technology has changed. The idea has not. A double-edged gift. But every great power carries a cost. The same fire that protected our ancestors could also destroy everything they had built. A neglected ember could consume an entire camp. Today, the scale has changed. Instead of burning a shelter, our use of energy can alter entire ecosystems. Instead of clearing a forest, it can reshape the climate itself. The challenge humanity faces has never really changed. We still possess tremendous power, and we still bear the responsibility of using it wisely. More than 1 million years ago, a frightened group of early humans looked into the flames and saw possibility instead of fear. Every civilization that followed, every discovery, every invention, every achievement began with that decision. The story of humanity is, in many ways, the story of fire. Tonight, somewhere on Earth, millions of people will gather around a fire. A family roasting food in their backyard. Campers deep in the wilderness. Villagers cooking the evening meal. Friends sitting in silence, watching glowing embers drift into the night. It's a ritual so familiar that we rarely stop to question it. Yet for our ancestors, this simple flame was nothing short of miraculous. It brought light into a world ruled by darkness. It turned deadly landscapes into places where families could sleep. It unlocked new sources of food, protected the vulnerable, extended the day, and over countless generations helped lay the foundation for everything that followed. Every brick baked in a kiln, every sword forged in a furnace, every steam engine, every power plant, every computer, every rocket leaving Earth's atmosphere, all belong to a story that began with a single fire. We often measure history by kingdoms, inventions, and great civilizations, but some of the most important moments left no monuments behind. No cities, no written records, only ash scattered across ancient campsites, and the lives that were forever changed because someone chose not to run from the flames. That person has no name, no face preserved by history, no statue built in their honor. Yet their courage echoes through every human life that has followed. Because on the day our ancestors learned to keep a fire alive, humanity stopped merely surviving the natural world and began shaping it. From that first glowing ember to the lights of cities visible from orbit, the distance seems impossible to comprehend. And yet, every step of that journey began with a spark. The story of civilization is the story of a flame that never went out. History is filled with incredible stories that are often left untold. If you'd like to discover more of them, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Your support helps bring these stories to life and allows us to continue exploring humanity's greatest discoveries, lost civilizations, and defining moments. Until next time, thank you for watching.